The Navy's 7th Fleet commander is relieved from duty following this week's deadly collision at sea, the 4th Pacific incident this year alone. The Navy is ruling out a security breach. So what is causing the problem? Here to weigh in is former USS Cole Navy Commander Kirk Lippold. Thank you so much, Commander, for being with us.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. So what is happening? Why all these recent collisions?
I think what you're seeing is a culmination of years of the Navy senior leadership back here in Washington, D.C., who have failed to properly man, train, and equip the fleet to do their jobs.
Well, as a commander, what went wrong in the latest collision?
Well, I think we're still investigating to find out how the USS John S. McCain got hit, especially where it did back on the port aft side, because that would be indicative that they were required to maintain course and speed. Clearly operating where they were, that can be a very narrow channel in some points. So I think we'll need to figure out where was the ship, who was maneuvering, what speeds were they going, who was notified on the ship, because clearly there was, once again, like the USS Fitzgerald, a shortfall in communication on board that allowed that tanker to get that close and hit them.
What's your message to the parents of these sailors that are lost at sea or that have died as a result of this? Because this seems like, it just seems like are we blaming Washington? Who's at fault? And what's your message to these parents?
Well, first and foremost, my thoughts and prayers are with the family and the crew of the USS John S. McCain, because they're the ones that are going to live with the burden forever that their sailors were lost at sea. But they need to turn now, and while the 7th Fleet commander may bear some responsibility, having had 4 collisions, we need to look back here in Washington, because quite frankly, when it comes to training, and I'll give you a quick example, when I started out as a young division officer, I went to school for 16 weeks up in Newport, Rhode Island to get trained on all the basics of how to go to sea and operate safely. Nowadays, they hand them a CD-ROM, tell them to go to their ships and go forth and do good. And the training burden is now out on the ships, which is more time, more maintenance, and when they're undermanned, that's part of the problem. We've gone from having 3 lookouts on a ship now to just having 1. These kinds of shortfalls where we have cut and cut and cut over years, even beyond the Obama administration, is now coming home, and some admiral's promotion is now being measured in the loss of lives of sailors at sea.
You mentioned 4 collisions. 3 of the 4 since January have been the 7th Fleet, and the latest 2 have resulted in the deaths of 17 sailors. We have, I think we have a graph to show you the last 4 recent collisions in the Pacific. On January 31st, there was 1. On May 9th, there was 1. June 17th and August 21st. You say cuts and shortfalls are to blame. What's your message to the president if he's watching this morning?
The president right now needs to mandate that the services, but especially the Navy, come up with a strategy that can be tied to force structure so that they can go forth and say, this is what we need for our Navy. And if they can't afford to have the Navy that we need to safeguard U.S. national security interests, then define for the American people what is the risk that we are incurring by not doing that, by not being able to operate and train safely to keep sailors alive when they're doing routine operations at sea, or going forward to the tip of the spear, whether it's in the Strait of Hormuz or out in the South China Sea. And until we get that force structure-based strategy, we're going to continue to live in a budget-based world, and it'll cost lives.
Yeah, I agree with you. We can't afford, I'll tell you what we can't afford. We can't afford to lose our sailors' lives because of negligence or because of shortfalls or cuts. That's ridiculous, and we owe them more. These are our heroes. Thank you, Commander. You're one of them as well. We appreciate your service. Thank you.